Just kidding. God, we are excited to have you back, man. It's been a minute, but man, one of the most popular episodes that we've had. So we're excited to have you back.
Excited to be back, guys, and finally gonna be able to meet you in person in Vegas, which I'm really stoked about. But that's a whole other conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. But man, since we've had you on, things have changed, right? Some market had changed, some government regulations, some oversight, and so we do want to get to that certainly, and that's really what the crux of this interview is going to be about today. But man, we've also grown. Our viewership has grown quite a bit. So let's go back a little bit, if you don't mind. Maybe give us a little bit about your background, how you got into this space, and then we'll kind of take it from there. How's that?
Yeah. I'll just say this. I started in the entrepreneurial world because I got this one line from my boss. At the time, I was a sports anchor for a local TV station. I walked into his office and I told him about what I needed and in order to be successful for that day for our show. And he straight up said to me, "Our audience doesn't care about what you have to say, so why should I?" And
your boss.
Wow.
My boss at that time. And I just
pep talk, huh?
Yeah. And you know, I think we all have that story, right? Of like where we get fed up of being in the 9-to-5 job and where we're just like, I gotta create my own future. And at that point, I even looked at it. I looked at my surroundings. I saw guys, I was 24 years old at the time. I saw guys that were in that industry until they were 35, still not making six figures. And I'm just like, man, I mean, you know, I love sports and I love what I'm doing, but at the same time, like at what sacrifice for my lifestyle? And so I started my entrepreneurial journey because I was fed up with taking orders from other people. And from there, it was a windy road of just like figuring out what was going to be my thing. Right. I started a business in making videos for high school athletes to help them get recruited to play in college. Then I got into an MLM, then I got into some sales, and I tried a lot of different things. But the biggest thing for me was they all had flexibility, right? For me to be able to control my own schedule. Yeah. And then number two is it had that ability to grow into something big. And it was around 2018 when my dad went into hospice that I was like, you know what? I know what I want. I know what that lifestyle looks like, but I don't know that I'm in the right vehicle. And so I started researching about real estate, found out about how to buy apartments. And for me at that point, I knew this was going to happen. Of course,
that's all right.
That's all right. As soon as we
love dogs.
Yeah. Anthony usually has his dog here too. We're good.
I know that he's going to try to say something, but if I just keep talking, he stops talking. All right. So long story short, I get to this point where I'm like, all right, real estate truly to me looks like the only way to build something that can, if I do something today, can pay me for the future and can give me that lifestyle. And apartments seemed like the way, but I was like, well, I don't have the money to go buy apartments. So what did I do? I got into flipping. It was not a great time for flipping. You know, you just talked about how we're looking at the market of short-term rentals is at the right time. It was not a great time for getting into flipping because the market was high. Things were starting to kind of change in regards to being a buyer's market instead of seller's market. And so I was like, you know, I believe that this is how I have to get into the real estate market. And so I did, and got my first 2 flips under contract within 5 months. And then that second flip, I turned into a short-term rental because I was just like, I think it's going to work. I'm here in Fresno, California. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I was like, I think this is going to work. And sure enough, it did. It 2.5x what I was going to make as a long-term rental in the first month.
You know, Kel, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to highlight here. A lot of times when people think short-term rentals, Airbnb, they're thinking tourists, they're thinking, you know, the beach or some by the mountains or Las Vegas.
They don't think Fresno?
Yeah. Fresno ain't coming up to the top, which I just think is very interesting on the market. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 sides of it, right? There's vacation rentals and then there's short-term rentals. The difference being vacation is pretty much self-explanatory, right? I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go to the cabin. I'm going to get a mental break from life. Whereas short-term rentals can be business. It can be family. It can be a wedding. It can be a funeral. It can be, you know, a number of different reasons of why people would do a short-term rental. And that is still an incredibly lucrative opportunity. So, But yeah, I mean, to your point, I kind of said, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I think this is going to work. I'm going to look at the data. I'm not going to look at my feelings on this. And then, we get our first, and I just asked myself, how can I do more? Went down the rabbit hole of YouTube and podcasts, found out how I could do it without owning the property, which was just like mind blowing. And here we are today, going on property number 70, about 3.5 years in. And, each of those properties, before all of my, employee expenses, does about $1,000 a month. So you can kind of do the math on that.
Good for you. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off because I don't care. But what was the moment that you realized that you didn't have to own it, right? You said that was like a mind-blowing moment. Take us back to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sitting there. I just made $2,000 on this rental net profit that everyone, said, no, just do as a long-term rental. And I 2.5x what I thought I was going to make. So it was just like, wow, like, how can I do this again? So what did I do? I looked up Airbnb, right? And I go and start looking at YouTube videos, and I go and start listening to podcasts. And I'm driving down. I can still remember, I'm driving down the 41 South here in Fresno, and this guy's on there talking about how he's leasing apartments in LA and then subleasing them back to Airbnb renters. His costs were about $2,500 a month, but his gross profits were $5,000 a month. He was netting $2,500 a month, and all he had to do was furnish it, set it up, and pay the security deposit, and he's cash flowing. And that was just like, wait, this seems too good to be true. And it was kind of one of those, like, off the beaten path podcasts. So I was like, is this like a scam? Like, what's going on here? So I called Airbnb and I literally asked them 2 questions. I said, do I need to show the deed to the house? They said no. And I said, okay, is there a limit of properties I can put on there? I said, no, you can have as many as you want. I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy's onto something, and bought his course. And a month later I had my first arbitrage deal. So just to dumb it down, arbitrage literally is renting from the owner or the company and then subleasing it on Airbnb. Key thing, get their permission. Don't do it under the table.
Now, Kyle, before we get into talking, I know we want to talk about the difference between long-term and short-term, but before we do, I'm just curious, you had mentioned you had a couple different careers before you started this business. You were a news reporter or a sports reporter. You did flipping. You did some MLMs. Going through all of those, which they didn't turn out the way that you originally had hoped when you started that. But how did that prepare you to do what you're doing?
Oh,
I mean, did those kind of going through that experience provide help?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked that question, because that's one of my things that I'm passionate about. A lot of people look at it and they say, giving you some props. Cameron, you have good questions too.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks. Yeah. Appreciate your pity.
It's a mindset thing, right? There's been some business partners that I've had in the past that look at past experiences and they say that was failed. And I say, no, it wasn't failed, because look at where it led us to today, and for me, it gave me a number of different skills. The sports anchoring world taught me how to work on deadlines, and taught me how to be able to shake hands with people and make friends quickly, because if you're going to ask them the tough questions, right, you got to be able to get on their good side. Then, owning a business taught me a little bit more about sales. It taught me about how to be professional, how to, work against competition. Getting into MLM, it taught me what I'm most passionate about today, which is team building and leadership, and how to be able to build loyalty within a company and culture. And then, of course, just getting into flipping. When I said yes to that, I was like, wow, I've developed all these skills that really can help me to raise money, to talk to owners, to, gather the team together and get them on board with making this vision into a completed property. And that then led me into the short-term rentals world, because I'd already built a team around construction. So why not just apply that same team, or at least, some of their subcontractors, into our short-term rental industry? So just like a combination of everything. And one of my mentors, when I was going through a tough time with owning my own business, he told me, he's actually the owner and founder of Max Prep's high school website. And he said, it was my 17th business that was my $1 million idea, you know.
Wow.
And you just think about that now. Max Preps, if you're a high school athlete, you know all about Max Preps. The guy, you know, makes tons of money, but it took him enduring all the pain. I just listened to it yesterday on an Audible book. It was, most people start something, but they won't endure the pain long enough to find the success. Right. And that's kind of what kept me going.
I think that's something that we don't talk enough about here. I mean, we have these, I'm a little biased. So we have these great guests here that are talking about these success, but you know, we don't dive into, like, it didn't just happen overnight. It took a while. It took some experience or some failures. I hear them. And, you know, a prime example, you know who can relate, Kyle? This guy. This guy, Cameron. You know what?
This failed so much, huh?
He's got this amazing silky smooth hair. But you know what, Kyle? I've seen some pictures of him from high school. And he had the little soul patch like flying up here, and his hair, what Jess saw in him, I do not know.
I don't know either.
But look at him now.
Yeah.
Right? You never would have thought, you know, he would have
Cam, when I come to Vegas, I'm bringing some dirt on Anthony, and we're gonna tackle this together.
I've got some dirt on Anthony. Just wait.
So, I mean, a lot of times people are talking about getting into the long-term rentals. It's one of the key, you know, commonly used to create passive income and that financial freedom. Mm-hmm. What's some of the differences between a long-term versus a short-term rental?
Well, yeah, I mean, the most obvious, right, is the management side of it, right? A passive long-term renter, the most that you're typically going to do is have to hunt people down for paying rent and call the plumber to go fix a leaky toilet, which are not fun, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big task. And especially in long-term rentals, you know, there's a lot of really affordable property managers, right? 8, 10, 12% is not a whole lot when it comes to, you know, charging $2,000 of rent. In short-term rentals, the reward is a lot higher. If I can 2, sometimes 3, maybe even 5x my rent, that's awesome, but that's going to come with a little bit of some sweat equity as well. So I've got to service the client, the guest coming into the house, right? They're coming in maybe for one night, maybe as much as we've had people come in for a year, but you know, we have to give them a great experience when they enter the house. It has to be cleaned. It has to be well stocked. It has to be in great condition. You know, if anything is not looking like it's in its place or potential for a bad guest experience, that's a direct hit on our reviews. We could get a 4-star review. We could get a 1-star review. And then the next person who wants to book sees that and gets turned off. So those are some of the things that make it a little bit more active. But what's great about this and any other business is that we can really outsource a lot of this work. I don't have to. And by the way, I haven't talked to guests at my properties in over 2.5 years. I can hire someone to go do that for me, and they don't have to be a brain surgeon in order to do it. You know, they just have to be good at communication. They have to have a phone. Like, that's all that I need to have for that person. How about a cleaner, right? Doesn't have to be a professional cleaner, just needs to be someone that's looking for some extra income, and I can teach them our cleaning method so that they can go in and clean that house without me having to go do it. I can hire great contractors and repairmen and handymen that can go and fix the leaky toilet so I don't have to show up and do that myself. There's a lot of things in this business that if we bring in great people, great technology, and apply some systems to that just like me at 70 properties, I'm only working about 3 to 5 hours a week. And that comes down to just bringing in the right people, technology, and systems, like I mentioned.
Kyle, out of the 70 that you have now, is it own arbitrage? What do you think that percentage would be?
Yeah, just because we're growing and changing so much, I don't have the exact numbers, but my best guess for you is about 70% managing for other people, 15% arbitrage, and 15% owning. So that comes out to right around 10, 10, and 50, I guess.
Okay. So would you say that kind of that arbitrage has allowed you to kind of expand your business and then also the co-hosting as well?
Yeah. And just so everyone understands the difference, arbitrage, we have overhead, right? We're renting from the owner, we're furnishing it, we're paying for all that, and then we sublease it, and we're getting a great profit most of the time. Keep in mind, seasonal in short-term rentals, right? I could make a ton in July and could make close to nothing in October, but over the course of a year, that's what we're looking at. In regards to managing, it's the same operations, but now the owner takes on all the financial responsibility. So I'm just coming in as almost like a service to the owner, where I'm going to run it for them, but they're going to take all the risk and they're going to do all the financial pieces. And I get paid a percentage based on the performance. So if I make that owner $5,000 of gross revenue and my fee is 20%, I just took the $1,000 off the top. That's my management fee. So that's, I kind of equate it to the owning is the highest reward, highest risk. Arbitrage is next highest reward, slightly less risk. And management, co-hosting is literally close to no risk and the least rewarding. But still, we have properties, that will cash flow us $2,500, $3,000 from the management model during the hot season. And that's good. That's free cash flow. It's pretty awesome.
Well, no, to have that, once you've established those procedures and the systems, you don't have money in the deal like you do if you're using the arbitrage. To me, that was a piece that I thought was the most intriguing. That's when we're really starting a business that can be scalable. And I'm assuming that's how you've been able to, where you're only spending a few hours a week on 70 properties.
Yeah. There was this one moment, and just so we really hit our stride actually during COVID, which is crazy, right? Because we started in May of 2019. We built up to about 6 or 7 properties up to February of 2020. And then, of course, March 2020, crap hit the fan. And we're wondering, are we even going to have a business? On the other side, about 3 or 4 months later, we're taking on 8 new properties. And this was a really cool story because up until this point, these 7 properties, I was very involved in the setup. I was managing it. I was going there. I was helping put things in their place. I was helping assemble furniture. But I was able to, during that time, create a team that I said, hey, here's how you do it. And eventually I'm going to only have you do this. We onboarded 8 properties right during July until a couple months later, where I was able to just show up at the end and see this perfect product in place. My team took care of it all. All I had to do was sign the agreement with the owner, collect the onboarding fee, and then pass them off to my team, and they take it from there. And it was at that moment that I was like, I have a plug and play business here that I can just, if I focus on one thing, creating relationships that lead me to more deals, I can just feed this machine. And that's exactly what we did for the next 2 years.
Now, Kyle, why would somebody who owns a property, why would they allow you to do a short-term rental versus, or the arbitrage model versus them doing a long-term rental?
So you guys own long-term rentals, am I right?
Yeah.
What are some of the frustrations that you deal with?
I would say vacancy, damage.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's always maybe complaints from the neighbors, or there's always that fear somebody's going to be working on their car in the, and fortunately I haven't had this yet, but foreclosures. Well, I did have one, but it wasn't that big a deal. But we're hearing these horror stories, particularly in California, where it's so hard to get tenants out.
Yeah. Well, let's address.
Did I just answer your question?
Yeah, you did. And you hit on 3 really key parts: damage, neighbors, and squatters, right? So damage, let's talk about that for a second. I had a owner that I worked with recently. We just took over their houses in arbitrage. Family was living there for 15 years, great renters, paying on time. But as soon as they left, that's the first time he's seen the property in 15 years on the inside. And what did he incur?
15 years?
15 years, yeah. And so what did he incur? He incurred about $30,000 worth of wear and tear and damage that, of course, a security deposit from 15 years ago is not covering. So for that reason, he's got to go in and he's got to replace all those things. What he got with me was anytime there was any damage, we had cleaners, we had quality control inspectors going in there. We had sometimes 3-4 times a week eyes on the property. And so when he gets his property back from us, if and when we ever end that relationship, he's going to get a crystal clean product that all he has to do is worry about who's going to come in and rent it next, because I'm not going to have to do all these upgrades. So there's damage from one end. On another end of the damage too, more insurance. You have a homeowner's policy in long-term rentals. Well, in short-term rentals, you have a homeowner's insurance policy, plus I have a renter's policy, and I can even choose to get another form of insurance that can layer above both of those and allow us to be insured in 3 different ways. Along with Airbnb and VRBO, they have their own internal quote unquote guarantee or insurance as well, that if something happens, I can submit that. So that's already one reason why someone would rather rent to me. Squatters, I'm just not going to deal with that because I'm not renting out. I'm short-term rentals, not long-term rentals. So they typically don't have any sort of rights to the property versus a long-term rental. And then the neighbors, right? Hey, someone's having a party. Thank you for letting us know. We'll kick them out right now. We can get them out of there in 24 hours. They don't have to live next to someone that's having a party every single weekend. But I will say this comes with being a responsible host, right? I can't just go in there and list on Airbnb and accept everyone and their mom, right? I have to vet these people. I have to have great opportunities for my team to know what are the red flags for guests and what are the green flags, so that I can make sure I am one of the best neighbors on that street.
You know, Kyle, when you said that, you know, obviously we follow you on social media, but as you were telling that, there was a cool video you did about somebody just starting out. Hey, this guy says he's, I don't remember some of the things, but hey, he's just having a few friends over, or you can kind of see this guy's going to party, or all these things. You're like, sure. So, so Kyle not only has some good information, but he has some that are entertaining as well. So I'd follow him on.
We like that fun
for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, so Kyle, you had talked about, you started this before COVID, and then COVID kind of during that time, this actually blew up. And I've kind of seen that where a lot of people during COVID, maybe they didn't want to travel in a public area or in a hotel, so I could see that COVID opened people's eyes to short-term rentals. But my question is that going to stay? Or like, how are you seeing things with Airbnb or short-term rentals now that COVID's passed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess short question of that is just kind of a market update.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mentioned to you that when I got into flipping houses, right, it was not the best time for flipping houses, but I saw it as an opportunity to get my foot in the door in real estate and to continue to, you know, if I could flip a house a month, maybe I could now start buying 3 houses a year with my own cash, but maybe it would open the door to something else. That's really the way that I look at short-term rentals. Is it is your foot in the door to real estate. It is, to me, the best way to get into real estate. Because is it technically, if you're arbitraging and coasting, is it technically real estate? No, it's really not. It's hospitality. But what it is doing is it's giving you management experience, which banks look at that if you're ever going to get into apartments. And it's connecting you with other real estate investors. And in doing so, if I provide a really great experience for a real estate investor, then I have now a connection in my network that I can maybe do a deal with that real estate investor. And instead of managing for their next property, maybe I can have an equity split with them, and doing things like that allow me to now open my network into the real estate game. So to me, short-term rentals is not the end game. It is the starting point. And the end game is getting owning as many assets as you can, cash flowing assets that will eventually allow you to, you know, have that mailbox or beach money that they call it. So in all that to be said, To me, this is an industry that's been around since the 1920s. It is not going anywhere. We call them Airbnbs, right? But it's really short-term rentals and vacation rentals. And so you have to make a decision. Am I willing to get into this industry and put in a little bit more work today than what may have been called of you 3 years ago? 3 years ago, you could literally take a shack, put it up on Airbnb, and make a ton of money. Now today, that shack has to be an experience. It has to be a teepee with the modern teepee experience, right? Like there has to be that experience or that special oomph behind it. I'll give you a good example of that. In here in Fresno, 2 years ago, we were taking on everything under the sun: 3-bedroom, 2 baths, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. What we've realized today is that everyone has something on Airbnb, so there's more competition, but the top 10% are still getting booked at crazy high rates, maybe even more. And it's because people are paying for a premium experience, a premium service. So if you're the best in your market, you don't have to worry about all the other noise. It's the same reason why I'm talking to realtors right now who are stoked about what's going on in the market, because they're like, good, from 2021 to now, everyone and their mom went and got a real estate license.
Yeah.
and I had all this competition now, and now they're all going to leave. And now it's just going to be me and the serious players again. So that's the way I look at short-term rentals right now, is if you're ready to be a serious player, it still is a great time to get in. You just have to be ready to look at it that way, or, hey, find a great market, hire a property manager to go do that for you, and let it be a passive thing.
So, Kyle, what I heard you say there was that short-term rentals, great opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door. And then also previously said kind of just the hierarchy of risk was ownership, arbitrage, and then co-hosting. So I'm assuming somebody kind of enters the door through that co-hosting spot, but it sounds like there's pretty competitive. How would someone navigate kind of that process? How do you get into that now ultra competitive or more competitive market if you're just getting started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
yeah, I know.
What, there you go. See, I knew I'd give you some props.
I knew you'd have a good one. Just took 26 minutes.
So the path of least resistance to me is the arbitrage model. That's the easiest way to get in. 2 reasons. You're giving an owner a guarantee. You are guaranteed to get this amount of rent from me for the next year or however long you sign that lease. And you're guaranteed that I'm going to treat that property well. Now, with the co-hosting model, what most owners are looking for is, do you have experience? Can I trust you that if you say I'm going to make $5,000, do you have the reputation, the resume to show that this is something that you've done before? So that's the progression for me. Was I own that first one. Some people don't have the ability to own the first one, and that's okay. Get in the arbitrage model. That was my next step. And then from there, it was actually very organic, guys. I just started telling people, hey, I'm doing Airbnb and it's going well. And just kind of brought in the abundance mindset and not trying to hide things from anyone. And that brought in opportunities for people to come to me and say, will you manage it for me? And it was funny because I didn't hear about other people managing Airbnbs or co-hosting, but I just thought to myself, well, it's basically kind of like a form of property management. I can't see why it wouldn't work, and ran the numbers, and sure enough, it's awesome. So I think, just to summarize that, crawl, walk, run would be get into arbitrage, start co-hosting, build up that cash flow without much risk, and then turn that into now owning those assets.
Kyle, you mentioned something there that you kind of started with an abundance mindset, and that's great. But as things get more competitive, how difficult is it to kind of keep that abundant mindset? Right, is when things start to get tight, people usually kind of get a little scarcity. Exactly, yeah.
So I'll tell you another story. I just mentioned to you I had the abundance mindset. I didn't start with that. I was at a few meetup groups. And I had about 3 Airbnbs at the time that were cash flowing me about $5,000 a month. And I was just like, this is awesome. And no one knows about it. And then one of our biggest real estate investors here in town, Jason, stood up in front of a meetup group and said, the more information I gave away, the more it came back to me. But I had to expect nothing in return, right? Just going and meeting with new investors and just hosting these meetups and giving away my secrets, giving away my tools. He's like, it's brought me more deals than I could ever have imagined. And it's because I had an abundance mindset. And when he said that, it was like he was literally looking at me in this room of 100 people being like, Kyle, tell everyone that you're doing Airbnb. Stop keeping this to yourself. And I had to trust that. And when I finally did trust it, it was so true. You know, I wouldn't have the coaching business if it wasn't for starting that abundance mindset. I wouldn't have 65 properties. I'd probably have 10 to 15. I wouldn't be giving my employees an opportunity to have, you know, full-time incomes and letting them have flexible schedules. They would be probably still doing their other things while trying to make ends meet. Like, it's just created so much more. And so for that reason, now at this point, that's kind of the motivator, right? Is like, all right, it's not about me. It's about the other people and all the people that we're able to impact. So I just have to trust that abundance mindset. I have to trust it's going to keep on going. With that said, I have created boundaries, right? That it's, if you want to get into this, right, you're going to have to put some skin in the game, because you can't, and that's honestly not just for me, that's for the students too, is because when you have skin in the game, when you've paid, you're going to do something, right? I was just having a conversation with my buddy yesterday. He's been telling me apparently for 6 months to go read Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. And it was going in one ear and out the other. Why? Because it's my friend. As soon as I asked my mentor, who I'm paying, what book should I read next, and he said Expert Secrets, I was like, oh, I haven't heard about that one. I'm going to go read it. You know, like that's just the way that we work. And so to me, you know, I guess wrapping that up, the abundance mindset with also, you know, putting up some boundaries so that we know that we're helping the serious people. I think that's the big thing.
I like that. Is just thinking about competitive wise, I think about our business.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to 13, 14 years ago when we started, no one had a clue about infinite banking and that stuff. And so when you would, no, this guy, I did mention him, but no, when you had a clue and you talk about it, right, nobody had an idea. But now there's more advisors kind of in this space. And number one, it helps with kind of getting that idea out there. But number two, it's made us better, just looking at what other people are doing and being able to kind of compete with them. So competition's good.
Yeah. Well, and plug for you guys. I just started using my infinite banking policy for the first time. I've been feeding it for the last 2.5 years, but I finally took some money out and I'm putting it into a private money loan. And we share a student that was just on my podcast recently that used the infinite banking policy through you guys to start his arbitrage business. So there's a lot of synergy with what we're doing.
And then through that, he was able to quit his job.
Yeah, as an FBI agent, nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah.
Speaking of coaching, I mean, that's a great segue, right? Is I think a lot of people listen to this and they might want to get started, a little bit intimidated, right? What's available? And Kyle, right, what are you teaching these guys? And really, I guess my question is, are you teaching, or can somebody approach you and learn how you went from like an operator, not only how to start a short-term rental business, but to operate one, but also that mind shift over to becoming an owner and getting into that? Is that available in the coaching?
Yeah. I mean, again, so, right, we talk about the boundaries. I only have 5 one-on-one students. And the reason we do that is because we want to keep it quality. So I'm only taking on the serious people in regards to one-on-one, and being honest, it's $5K a month. You know, that's the down to me trying to help the serious people with my time. So for that reason, though, if I'm going to help out more people, I have to have other opportunities to teach them without my time being compromised. So I have created a really awesome course that if anyone wants to essentially have a business in a box and go from A to Z, from starting your business all the way through scaling your business to 20 to 50 and more properties. We have the STR Kickstart course, which as a thank you to you guys, our public price for that is $14.97, but we're going to give your audience a $500 discount, and that's $997. So everything we've talked about today is taught in that course, from starting your arbitrage business, pitching to landlords, overcoming obstacles and objections, setting up that first property, automating that property so that you're not having to work in it. You can now start to focus on your business and then scaling it from there. It comes with the tools, the templates, the contracts, the scripts, like hours upon hours upon hours of everything that I've done for the last 3 years is built into this course, and we're always updating it as well. So that's just a little thank you to your audience. And then for those of you that are still just like, hey, I want to dip a toe in the water, I'm not quite there. I would encourage you to just check out our free resources. All of those can be found at my website, fearlesskyle.com. But we have, a podcast, YouTube channel, and a free Facebook group, which is one of the largest in the world for Airbnb, called Airbnb Masterminds.
Now, Kyle, in your course, is it all recorded, or is there any access or interaction where people can ask questions?
Yeah. So right now, wink, wink, there's changes coming. Right now, it is self-study on your own, and you're left to your own devices. But anyone who has our course will be grandfathered into something really special that we have working in the background that's going to add the community aspect. And there might even be some opportunities to have some discounts to some really key tools in your business that will save you hundreds upon hundreds of dollars over the years. So really excited about what we have cooking there. It has not been released yet, but if you are a member of our course, you're going to be grandfathered into that. Once we do have it released, we're expecting probably somewhere in November.
Now, Kyle, say if somebody's here listening and this is something that they want to learn more about, how much capital should they have, and how much time should they expect to contribute?
Great question. I've gotten to the point where I'm just telling everyone, the availability of 25K is the smartest thing. Sure, you can go and find an owner who was willing to have you manage for them right away. But I don't like starting a business without a little bit of a cushion. And I just don't think it's super smart if you don't have that cushion. Now, do you have to have that in your bank account? No, you don't. Like, that's the greatest thing about this. If you have a strong business plan, you can go to a trusted friend, relative, possibly even a bank, if you have a good relationship with a bank, and say, here's the plan. All I need is 25K to get it started. That's my recommendation, because you're going to not only have, as an arbitrage model, you're not only going to have the cost of, call it, 10K of furnishing plus a security deposit plus first month's rent. You're going to have some business things, creating an LLC, creating a website, creating some marketing tools, maybe even a hire or two, just if you are that busy person. In terms of time, depends on how fast you want to move this. You can go as little as 5 hours a week to as much as 50 hours a week. But as long as you have at least those 5 hours, you can build a business at a pretty relatively good pace.
Kyle, in that course, are they going to learn about owning, arbitrage, and co-hosting?
Yeah, so heavy focus on arbitrage and co-hosting. Ownership, we just kind of give you the tools to be a great owner, and give you and tell you, hey, if you want to go learn how to burr, or you want to learn how to connect with wholesalers, or you want to go on the MLS, like that's kind of up to you of what that purchase acquisition strategy is. But we're going to show you how to be a great operator.
Kyle, you got a success story you can share with our listeners before we wrap up here?
Heck yeah. One of my favorites, it's my top student. His name's Halame Kinney. That's a fun name to say, so I like saying it. He is in Utah, 50 units in under 5 months, and collected over $1 million in under 7 months on Airbnb, primarily through the arbitrage model mixed with a little bit of co-hosting as well. The guy did not have any real estate experience, busy dad and busy business owner, and was still able to do this, and even while having a third kid along the way. Pretty much a beast, and not typical for results, right? I don't want to get anyone's head too big, but what's possible. Our typical student will come in and get about 1 property per month, as long as they're willing to put in the work.
Very cool. Awesome. Where can they find that again?
I think we were going to have it on your show notes, right?
Yeah, we're going to have that link for that special offer. But where are some other ways that they can get a hold of you if they just want to follow you or get a little more info?
Yeah, at Fearless Kyle on Instagram. FearlessKyle.com is the website. And then the YouTube channel and podcast, which we're doing tons of content, is The Fearless Investor.
I like it. Awesome, Kyle. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.